Hey, Soul Tribe, thank you for joining us. So, I have my gorgeous friend Fiona Chin here with us today. We have been friends since college, so I'm so happy to be able to introduce the gorgeous Fee to you guys and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Oh, lovely. And we were just joking about like how fast time goes and how, we're still kind of like local to each other. So we will catch up in person as well.
Yes, we do. We need to do that.
So, just to give you guys a rundown, so we are going to be talking about how to become a new version of yourself today. We're going to be talking about, excuse my voice, I've been doing hours and hours of readings this week, everyone. So, we're going to be talking about neuroscience and biohacking. And we're also going to be talking about a bit of naturopathic work that Fiona does and longevity stuff. So, stick around if you guys want to learn how to anti-age and also keep your body in the optimal condition as well. It's going to be a really exciting chat. So let me just get started on your bio. So Fiona Chin, naturopathic doctor, and you also have a Bachelor of Health Sciences. Is that correct?
That's it.
Awesome. So, longevity and kidney health expert, author, advisory board member. So, Fiona Chin is highly experienced naturopath with a bachelor's degree in health sciences and over 20 years in clinical practice across the US, Canada, and Australia, specializing in neurological, autoimmune conditions, longevity medicine, and chronic kidney disease, blending cutting edge science with integrative health strategies. So, you also have a passion for biohacking, like myself, and human optimization. And this drives your work with the kidney coach work that we'll get into as well. So, you also have a platform that you've co founded, which is about empowering those that live with chronic kidney disease. And through education programs and evidence-based tools, you're also the founder of Keygenesis, a targeted supplement range designed for kidney health, and also the host of Kidney Coach podcast and YouTube channel as well. So go check that out. And in recognition of your expertise, you were also invited to be a lead author on 2 chapters of integrative nephrology. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that.
That's right. Yeah.
And a comprehensive guide from modern practice, a forthcoming Springer Nature medical textbook in 2025, and also an advisory board member for Longevity Company, contributing your knowledge in advanced testing, personalized medicine, and healthy lifespan extension, and also a head medical practitioner for the Quantum Club at the exclusive ecosystem for high achievers. So Fiona developed the individualized health plans on comprehensive scientific testing, and that's what I love about your work and why I wanted to have you on too, because this is not just guesswork here.
Yeah.
And also longevity biomarkers, genetic profiling, and analysis of blood chemistry as well. So Fiona's approach is informed not only by science, but also personal experience, having been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2010 and sustaining a spinal cord injury in 2015. So she explored advanced and emerging therapies firsthand, and you'll see some cool photos and things as well if you go dive into her work and some cutting edge science and technology that's amazing, including stem cells, peptide therapy, VSELs, SOT and laser therapy, neuromodulation, and targeted rehabilitation. She was Australia's first qualified WALS protocol practitioner and has trained extensively in peptide therapy, including the SSRP and leading Russian peptide research. The Russians, they have it when it comes to the peptides. It's amazing. So your work also included collaboration with world-renowned neuroscientists and researchers during her time with one of my favorite people, Dr. Joe Dispenza, exploring frontiers of neuroplasticity, meditation, and the body's capacity to heal. She also was the keynote speaker at the post-viral symposium for long haul COVID in 2024. When not consulting, researching, or speaking, Fiona can be found delving into the latest breakthroughs, wellness and longevity, or trying out new health protocols. And also you've got here as well, is trying a new 90-day course of hyperbaric therapy, which is incredible, and playing the piano, listening to music, or playing with your beautiful Doberman Apollo.
Yeah, he's over there on the couch. That makes me sound way smarter than I actually feel.
Oh, no. Seriously, it's like underplaying it, if anything. So we're so lucky to have you. Thank you for joining us. Is there anything that we've left out?
I don't think so. I think you've got it all in there. A kinesiologist as well. That's obviously how we met.
Yeah. So side note, we actually met, it would have been the very early 2000s as kinesiologists. And I was just reflecting this morning, thinking about some of the amazing experiences we had, even outside of college and, like mystical moments, because like my audience is very into the woo as well.
Right.
And just, the magic that occurs when you get together with other like-minded woo people that have beautiful heart-brain connections. And I was remembering there was one experience, actually it was at your house, and it was my naming ceremony when I decided to change my name. And you girls held a very beautiful ceremony. And I remember we had a sage smudge stick, and we didn't have any matches or anything. And I think it may have even been your idea. And you're like, let's just light it with our conscious mind. And I remember we're sitting there, and all of a sudden embers start to glow on this sage stick. Do you remember that?
Forgot about that, but no, you reminded me. Yeah, Angelica was there. Yeah, wow, that was crazy. Yes, I do remember that.
And then there was like literal smoke coming off this smudge stick that us 5 girls were like visualizing or holding this intention that there was embers, and then we used it to sage ourselves. So yeah, that's like a really clear woo memory. But yeah,
love that. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, we've had some crazy fun ones together, that's for sure.
We really have. Yeah. So, we're so lucky. I feel like we went to, with Kinesiology House, it really felt like Hogwarts. It just held such magic in that beautiful building in Carlton. And I remember going to Veggie Bar, I think, for the first time with you as well. I think you introduced me to Veggie Bar.
Veggie Bar and the Moroccan soup kitchen was the other place we used to go to all the time. Yeah.
Which they actually just did the graduation dinner for my daughter when she finished school. So the food was amazing. Yeah.
So good. Yeah. I remember all of that now. Memories are coming flashing back.
Yeah. Oh, and if you guys haven't already, thank you for the reminder, Lorianne, to hit that thumbs up and also to share this out to anyone that may be interested in wanting to upgrade or optimize. And let me just pop over to my little list of questions. So the first one I wanted to talk about, because we're very much into neuroscience and identity shifting, and you having been working more closely with Dr. Joe in the past as well and having incredible experiences, what was it that really led you down that path?
The actual Dr. Joe part, I guess, my story is I grew up in Tasmania, and for those that don't know, I used to see dead people as a child. So we'll just go straight there, shall we, Sol? So
hence why we're friends.
Yeah. So, and it was, it's one of those strange things. And I had this imaginary friend when I was 3, and I remember this, called Goosey Gander, and I used to draw pictures of him. And what kid doesn't have an imaginary friend? And my parents used to hear male voices in our bedroom at night. My parents were initially like, wow, so I've got a sister. They're like, Fiona Miranda can throw their voices around. That's kind of cool. And then one night when they're in bed, this mum describes it as an energy came floating into the bedroom, and she's like poking my dad. She's like, can you see that? And he's like, yes. And she's like, get up and turn on the light. So he gets up and turns on the light. This thing doesn't disappear. And anyway, mum said she was absolutely petrified, as you can imagine. That my parents aren't into this. My dad is was a forestry consultant. My mum is a clinical psychologist, social worker. So they were like, what is going on? So they sung to it, did a whole pile of things. And what mum will describe it as what felt like hours, it finally disappeared after they said the Lord's Prayer to it. And the next morning, and I must have been 3 or 4, I got up and tied my dad up in the chair. I put my fingers to his head like a gun, and I said, you sent my friend away. Now I have to kill you. And I remember my dad going pale white, and they were like, oh my God, that thing was real. So I was very lucky that because my parents had an absolute experience of it, that they both had it. It was confirmed, and then that happened. I was never told that I was imagining things, or that what often now gets put down to a child's imagination was ever not real. I know you're so amazing with your kids with this stuff as well, but, so I was never, I guess that part of my brain never got shut off. So at a very young age, I worked with, I guess, what we would call stranded souls, and all the way up until I was sort of 26. And you remember that place that I was living at in in Ivanhoe, and it was like a super highway. I didn't sleep for about 3 years. I just spent, especially after I did crystal dreaming and training with Ram, I just spent my time clearing souls. And so I guess growing up, my parents had a friend very similar to you, an amazing woman that could read tarot and was very psychic. And she sort of just helped me and taught me how to close down my energy systems and how to protect myself around that sort of stuff. So I guess I was always into it because I just had a unusual childhood. And then I worked for a personal development company in Western Australia. And then we held an event in Mexico, and one of the key speakers was Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he and I just became good friends. I guess for me, I still think he's one of the best people at being able to take a quantum physics sort of concept and then teach it in a way that people can understand it and then utilize it in the sense of meditation. I don't know if you found that about him as well, but he's just
definitely.
He's a key communicator and key educator in that space. He does that very, very well. So people are able to take his stuff, apply it, and then have amazing experiences with it. So he reached out to me via an email and said, "You've been selected as a team leader." I actually texted him and I said, "I think you've got the wrong Fiona." And he's like, "No, that was for you." I was like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, then I went on and obviously worked with him for 3 to 4 years before COVID came along. And it was just an amazing experience. And then obviously when you're sitting in retreats, you know, I was 2 weeks in Australia, 2 weeks overseas. So I must have sat in like 35 of his retreats back to back over the years. So yes, but that's how I initially got into it. And obviously we studied kinesiology together. I've always had that bent and that understanding because I guess for so long I'm trying to understand myself, right? Because I'm like, I don't see the world the same way, probably like you and a lot of your listeners, right? So we're always looking for a lens to try and make our world make sense. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, and I'm so incredibly proud of you and everything that you've done. It blows my mind. I mean, even having, you know, just like the Dr. Joe thing, if that was just like one thing, but you've done so much. So I really think it is that self-inquiry, that self-discovery that leads us on this journey of expansion. And just to think, we're kind of only halfway. You know, when we look at biohacking and we look at lifespan, we maybe even be less than halfway, who knows? But just think about what's going to be in 50 years from now. It's just, yeah, it's exciting to think of the adventures that are still ahead too.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, we're lucky in a sense that the woo-woo that when we were kids, and I know you very similar to me growing up, saw all sorts of things, and we were told we were a bit woo-woo or crazy to the general. I never talked about seeing dead people or anything really to anyone apart from you guys. Like, you were my tribe for that stuff. The first lot of people that didn't think I was bonkers or didn't want to put me in a mental asylum. And then, but we can talk about it now because there are, you know, neurosciences or neuroscientists coming out and talking about this stuff. We've got the telepathy tapes. We've got so much more that science is starting to document that people don't think this is so crazy anymore. And we're lucky with that. But, you know, when we were kids growing up, you just didn't talk about it, right? Well, at least I didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't until I got to, like, I remember my guide saying around 4 or 5 years old, don't talk about this stuff because you're going to get locked up in a crazy home. Didn't know what that meant. So I kept a lot of it to myself, except for at night when I was scared of, you know, the room being very busy. Not that they were negative, but it's just, you know, you're told that it's all your imagination. And I think because I'm so stubborn, it's like, no, I wasn't going to shut that down. I'm like, it's definitely there. It's like the lady on the plane, that MF. There is never, you know, is not real. How like convicted she was believing in that too. It's like that. Sometimes it's a good thing, you know, when we have that staunch belief that we don't let other people come in and override things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So let me just jump into this one. So from a neuroscience perspective, what has to change in terms of the brain for someone to become a completely different version of themselves? So not just from like a thinking perspective, but more kind of like an embodiment perspective.
It's a great question. And it's so interesting because up until fairly recently, people thought the brain was pretty hardwired in from, you know, the age of 0 to 7, the brain's really plastic. And then it continues to expand and grow as we make ideas about ourselves up until about 21 to 25. And then they thought really once that wiring was in, it was hardwired. And then Norman Deutsch came along and wrote the book, The Brain That Changes Itself. That got really popular back in like 2010, right when I was diagnosed with MS, because I remember reading that book. And all the studies that they did with it, like they had a girl that was blind, that she taught herself to see through her tongue. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible.
incredible. And so we suddenly realized what we thought about the brain, about it being hardwired, isn't the case. They've got the study in that book too of a doctor's father who had a massive stroke and lost the capacity to do everything. And they made him like stir the pot and do all of this sort of stuff to retrain how his brain works. And he donated his brain to science. And he got all his function back, but he had a massive stroke. And when they cut his brain up, he lost 90% of it after the stroke. He only had 10% of the brain, healthy brain tissue left. And he was hiking, doing all sorts of stuff and living a normal life up until he died. And then they're like, okay, well, the brain is amazing about how it can remold. But to your question, how did most of us change without having a stroke and having to go through massive rehab and using parts of our brains that we hadn't done before? And you mentioned embodiment, which I think is such a key part. And I think it comes to, you have to, and Dr. Joe talks about this, it's more than just thinking about being something else, about thinking about going to the gym. And it's hard because you can't know what you don't know. So when you look at yourself, you're looking at yourself and the world and others through a limited lens of what you have. And you can't think or be or see outside of it because that's capped. And so to become a whole different person, you've got a couple of choices. You have to either embody and be and do things that are completely not who you currently are. I remember when I did a ayahuasca journey and I actually had this conversation with Mother Gaia or the plant or whoever you want to call her. And she was like, you can be whoever you want. You just have to be it. She's like, go be an artist, but you have to go and live and breathe being an artist over and over again until that becomes who you are. It's almost like in the Delulu is the Solulu. Like you become so delusional that becomes a solution. So it's, Dr. Joe would say you have to think, act, believe greater than your environment. You have to, I guess, stimulate those parts of the brain that allow new synapses to grow. And it's a doable way, and it takes a longer time to do that. But it means getting up in the morning and maybe brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, driving to work and doing something completely differently, learning something that you've never done before. You never sung, go and learn to sing. Like it's breaking that, and that doctor has that book, it's breaking the habit of being yourself. You have to become a completely different person. And then to your point, you have to embody it. You have to move like that. You have to basically have that version of you that you're trying to create so running through your veins. And a bit like how you said you were so stubborn as a kid that you knew what you saw. It's like you have to be so committed to the version of yourself that you're trying to build that you cannot get pulled back into the old environment. And sometimes that means you will lose your friends, or that often they drop away by themselves, or you end up going through a massive breakup, or you end up losing your job. Like what tends to happen when you really, really do embody that is the world as you've known it falls away around you to allow this new world to happen. But that can be a really lonely period to go through. It can take a long time. It's often us that is in the rush. The universe is never in a rush to do these things. So it can take a long time. So that's the hard, school way of doing it. Or, if you're into your plant medicines, that can accelerate the journey. Definitely psilocybin, all of those. They've done a lot of studies now. Brian Johnson's doing some studies on big doses of psilocybin, if anyone's following that stuff, where the brain, you can accelerate brain changing by doing those things. And I'm not saying to do them. I've done some plant medicine and I'm obviously an avid meditator, and probably my most magical experiences actually come from meditation, not from plant medicine. But I think if you're really stuck and indoctrinated into the matrix, which, some of the team made that beautiful comment about breaking out of the matrix programming, sometimes plant medicines or working with someone like yourself can help accelerate that journey for people, because plant medicines, and if you've ever experienced DMT or some of those things, they shatter your worldview, right? And so when you come back into your body, you can never think or be the same because you've had an experience far out your reality. And that's the point of those medicines, I guess. So that's the other way to do it.
No, such good points. And having done ayahuasca and some DMT and a little bit of psilocybin as well, it definitely does expand you. And it's interesting because it's also, I noticed what I didn't expect. I thought, okay, it's going to be just, you're experiencing it in the physical body, maybe feeling sickness or, just a little bit out of control, but also like being shown visions and having, pineal gland activated DMT visions, things like that. I didn't expect my chakras to vibrate. That was like one of the surprise things. My root chakra vibrated, which was just so intense, like having to kind of sit there with this vibrating root chakra for like 4 or 5 hours. But you're actually purging things energetically. And in another session, it was every time I thought of a boyfriend at the time, I'd vomit. And it's like, energy doesn't lie. But yeah, it was interesting. I'm like, it's all right. I'm just vomiting out my heart chakra. But yeah, it's so interesting because like the mind, body, and spirit are so interconnected. And I think that's why we feel such immense feelings, when we do go on these plant medicine journeys. And as we've said on other shows, it's definitely something to be respected. It's not really something that is addictive in terms of that, when you're working with such the sickness that sometimes comes with it. But there is also a reverence that I do recommend, people have when they go into these experiences, even meditating with the spirit of the plant medicine beforehand, just gets you so much more out of the experience. But I was listening to what you were saying with your answer, and it also was reminding me of how in childhood, we actually will take on a character as a belief, like so easily until we get into grade school and high school and we get programmed. So we naturally have this inbuilt ability to take on characters or to become who it is that we wish to become. So it's like we have to undo all of this programming. And that's where I love things like tapping or hypnotic subliminal programming, which if you guys haven't checked out, let me just pop this up on the screen as well. So thank you for the reviews already, guys, that you've given me. But if anyone hasn't seen my little hypnotic subliminals, let me pop this up on screen. We're having such amazing feedback from people that are doing them. So they're layered with hypnosis. And then I take you guys into that little induction. And then we have theta brainwave meditation music. And we also, binaural beats, we also have affirmations that are layered just under the normal level of hearing. And so, yeah, you guys can read the reviews and things over there. What do you find helps you to let go of the character programming, and to get back into what it is that we, I guess, had in a childlike state? Is there anything that sort of helps you tap into that imagination and that being creation?
Yeah, you read my mind actually as you were talking. I was like, yeah, you're so right. As children, we have imaginary play, right? And do you remember like playing dress ups and you'd like, I'm gonna be a teacher. Or then I was like, I was always wanted to be like a gardener, like and own a nursery, and yeah, my fairy part of me, right? So it's like, and you would do this and you would play that. And I guess as adults, we lose the ability to play. And if you look at all like Brene Brown's research, they say we learn more and can adapt faster when we play. So I think, it's hard for a lot of adults that are, as we become very left brain and logical, to get back into that play mode and pretend and give yourself permission just to dream and to be and to sit into that space. But I think creating space for that is really, really important. And I think as far as, how do we become and move into that? I think the big part is, and I think this is the part as adults we find the hardest, it's the surrender part and it's the letting go. Yeah. And it's the why at the Dr. Joe events, I don't know if he does it so much anymore, but we used to have those activity events. We'd make people do surrender trust falls and things like that. It's that learning to feel what surrender feels like. And you would know David Hawkins and all the eye of the eye and the letting go process. And you'll find that ability to let go. And I'm not, this is the thing I struggled with the most, I think, in my journey of getting better at it, is that to let go of control of how I want life to look and surrender life over to being a process and experience to just be had and to be lived. So I think the greatest thing we can do is just hand over our divinity to the universe and come into more of a co-creation. And then life does actually start to become fun. But it's so hard to let go of that. I get it. Like there's parts of me that are, like just want to grip on and go, we want to go this way. And the universe is like, yeah, we need you over here. So I think it's that in part, that intuitive part where we have to be okay to listen to the intuitiveness. I do think whether we come down with a divine plan or the universe has a plan for us and surrendering into that, I do believe we get to co-create as well. But I often feel like there's that surrendering in process that has to happen. And when you can surrender and let go, life seems to flow faster. And in that faster flow, life seems to line up in the direction of where you're meant to be going. And it seems easier and things come up. But as you would know, the surrendering process can mean letting go of relationships. It can be letting go of jobs. It can be letting go of the things that we thought we wanted, or as adults in our, early 20s and early 30s worked so hard to achieve, and then realizing it, crap, that's not where we're meant to be going, or, what actually is in my heart, or what is of the highest good for me. So I think, I really like that David Hawkins book, Letting Go. I think, that's really great. And then obviously there's some, what's his name? Michael Singer. The Surrender Experiment is the sort of more heart version of that. The David Hawkins is very left brain, how to do it logically and giving you process. And then Michael Singer has such a beautiful process in that letting go. And you read Michael Singer's story of how his life unfolded when he just said yes to the universe and did that. And it's like this amazing journey. So, but I think as adults, I think we find that really hard. I think it is hard.
Yeah. And I was at Dr. Joe's Marco Island, Florida event in November 2024. And we did the surrender event. I remember doing it, I think it was maybe my first year of college. And I just remember how hard it was, like, to let go. And I think that's the thing with a lot of empaths too, is that, they're so used to also giving and to caring and nurturing for others. But when it comes time to being open to receive, and unless we can kind of like surrender our idea or the way that things have to be, and I think that's the thing, it's like to kind of let go to, whether you want to say universe or God or even to your higher self, it's sometimes in that letting go, things actually line up. It's almost like when we're trying to program or go, it has to happen this way, or it has to be, a blue card that I'm manifesting that has to look like this, it has to be this price, it has to come from here. It's like, what if the universe actually wants to line up a prize, or someone going, you know what, I think that this would actually suit you. So sometimes we're actually creating our own roadblocks. And I think, working with things like 9D breath work, I noticed you actually kind of on a physical level felt emotions and felt energy build up that had been maybe in resistance or old hidden and trapped emotions. You can actually kind of feel it thematically purge and leave your body. So I've done other breath work as well. That was just, there was something a little bit different with the letting go. It's the letting go tape. I think the 9D one, I went and experienced it live, which was so much fun. But I think if we can be in that state of surrender, children will quite often do that as well. So it's almost like we're going back to this way of becoming childlike again and, following things of highest inspiration or highest fun. So I think maybe we need to like allocate maybe even just one day a week to dress up as the character, whether it's the gardener or, a librarian or the artist, and to kind of just live that. And I find as a Leo that I sometimes will do that. Like if I'm going to read in the crystal shop in person, like last week was like a tarot dress with, it's like pink and red Alice in Wonderland puffy sleeves covered in tarot dresses. I'm like, where else do I get to wear something like this?
I love that.
Sometimes it is about like feeling a little bit uncomfortable, because I think when we change, it does require some level of uncomfortability. And I remember Tim Ferriss and did you hear about his experiment to get over that feeling of uncomfortable? He'd go lay down in a Starbucks on the floor for like 60 seconds.
Oh, yeah. That's a while ago. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But, I think if we can do it through maybe dress ups, it might be a little bit more fun and a little bit less like, oh my God, are you having a stroke? Are you okay?
Well, it's that it won't feel comfortable because the unknown doesn't feel comfortable, right? That's a good feedback, I think. Like the known is comfortable. That's why we crave it. That's why we don't want to get out of our comfort zone. So I think and it's one of those things that when you're changing, it will feel uncomfortable and feel jarring and not right. That sometimes that actually means that you're on the right track as things start to line up as you let go and you're in that transition phase. So yeah, but if it's the known, it will feel very comfortable and that you're in control of things. So I always say there's that transition that isn't very enjoyable as you're moving from known to unknown.
And I think that's the hard thing in the trust surrender state. And I feel like we recreate, or for those that are really on this journey of learning as much as we can, I feel like you and I in that same little basket in that way. There is like where you recreate yourself over and over again. And I talk about, sometimes it feels like you're putting a match to life and just starting life completely again. Or, for you, like going to many different countries and things too. One thing that I noticed though, when you start to feel into that momentum gathering for surrendering into that trust, there's sometimes what I call a little energy thread, and you'll start to get like a little glimpse or like a crack of light coming from under the door.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you or a technique that you have to kind of pull that in a little bit faster, or to feel that that's coming towards you a little bit easier once you get a hold of like what that feeling or vibration feels like?
That's such a great question, Sol. I think for me, I definitely threw a torch with some gasoline, some diesel. It cost me a fortune now, and about 20 boxes of matches to my life about 4 years ago. And then it burnt for 4 years. And I was like, what have I done? I've changed my mind. This is horrible. Why would I do this? And it took a really long time to find the thread. And I can see the thread now, not always in hindsight. You're like, the thread was there the whole time, but you can't see it when you're in it. But now that I'm in it, it's learning to say yes and to trust that the universe tends to line things up. So part of it is a trusting. A part of it is, that conspiracy that the universe actually is working in our favor. That was something I had to reteach myself, because I went through a period of divorce, and I went from being able to walk really well to losing my ability to walk properly, and then chronic pain, and then having to move house. And then my dad passed away, and I had a massive car accident and couldn't ride the horses anymore. And like, it was like my entire life. And then obviously COVID, and I couldn't go to the Dr. Joe events, and everything that I'd built my identity around just got absolutely torched and burnt. Like, there was nothing left of my old life, like none of it. The universe just was like, did it in an extreme version. And so I had to build who I am from the beginning, and to remake concepts of myself. I've always been quite athletic and all of those sort of things. And I, can't move my body like I used to, or operate and move through the world. And I'm, like you say, I travel a lot and I go to crazy countries, and it's like, I have to do that with crutches now. And it's easy now to sit back and see that how it was all working for me. But I started to have conversations to myself and saying things like, maybe I can't see it now, but maybe this is all working for me. And the universe and I have completely different timelines about me needing to know it now, because that's my personality, and the universe going, you don't need to know now, you just need to trust and surrender. So I think once I got on board with, and again, I had to fake it to feel it, that I was like, the universe is maybe conspiring in my favor, and I just can't see it yet. And to the point where I go, the universe, now where I'm sitting, like, the universe was conspiring in my favor, and now I can finally see it. But I'm 5 years out of when I threw the matches onto my life. And maybe if I had the thread, it would have been easier. You probably say the same thing that I do. I feel like older souls, like, we don't read the fine print. We're just like, yeah, we'll go and do this again. And then you get halfway through and you're like, where was the bloody fine print? I changed my mind. No, it is hard. So,
I think of it like the Hunger Games. It's like, before we sort of like read the fine print, it's like we're like, hands up, I volunteer as tribute, to come down now, and then get here. And it's like, what the hell? This is like 5 lifetimes in one. Because, star seeds, we don't come to Earth as often. So it's like, let's just pack as much on a human level that we can into one lifetime. Oh my gosh.
I changed my mind. Where's my spaceship? Get me out of here.
I was just thinking, where's the mothership?
It forgot to pick me up. Please abduct me. Yeah, no, I've had many a night where I'm just like, please, like, get me off. I like completely changed my mind. I can't do this. Like, it's too hard. And I'd be lying if I didn't have many a moment where I'm like, it's too hard. I have bitten off more than I can chew. And I've had to chew hard and quickly to get through to the other side. And yeah, I guess that pulling on the thread for me, having gone through that sort of time, was that and some people are really good at doing this, like the universe is working in our favor and we just can't see it now. I found that very hard to do until the last sort of maybe year and a half, where I was like, hang on, I teach this, I need to pick that thread up. And I started to just have that conversation with myself all the time. And whether it was that or, I started to see the light, and then as soon as the light started to come through, I was like, yeah, okay, all right, I can see it now. And now it's been easy to pull on that. And now that I'm in a bit of, I can just trust. And, things will come up and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. But the universe is like, yeah, well, we've just shifted things around so you can do it. Okay, all right, I trust you. Okay, I trust you. All right, let's do this. So, yeah, but it was hard.
And I wonder if it's something, I know I can definitely see all of those moments and things in my birth chart. And there's this energy of having the 3 yods where it's like there's this antagonistic sort of energy of this itch that you can't scratch. And it's like, once I work it out for myself, I'm going to share whatever information or knowledge comes through it. And then it's like, whatever the hard thing that you went through, it's like, yeah, I'd probably still do it again if it means that it can help other people. It's like you want to use your lessons and things to help other people so they don't have to go through that. And I totally see that in your, in your life. I wonder if you've got yods or some kind of mystical energy that's in your chart.
Probably. Mine, it's funny, I don't know much about my chart. I'll have to get you to do it. I know I've got a very high cryon energy. I'm born right in alignment with Cryon, and of course the story of Cryon is he's the healer that can't heal himself. And I read that story, I'm like, yeah, that sounds bloody right. So very much, there's something about where Cryon is at the time I'm born. So
oh my gosh, yeah. And it's interesting because if it's maybe near your ascendant, it's almost like that's your identity, going from the wounded healer to the teacher and the embodiment and being able to like help many. Like that makes so much sense. I've got goosebumps all over.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, you'll have to send me your chart or we'll get together and chat charts. That'll be so much fun. Let me jump to the second question. So a little bit still in alignment with the first question, but just looking at neuroplasticity and reality creation in a slightly different perspective. So with your work that you've done also with Dr. Joe, so how much of becoming the new self is more kind of like mindset work as opposed to actual biological rewiring of the brain and the body? Because how he talks about, when we get those emotions and we get those mental patterns and things firing and wiring together, it obviously builds new neural networks, and we have like those thicker, denser, ropier paths. Mm-hmm. How much do you feel is more kind of like mindset stuff versus, no, we actually need to get in there and do a bit of pruning?
I think it's a bit of both. And I think one creates the other. It's that old adage of, I went back last year and started playing piano again. I played piano as a child, but obviously I hadn't played for 20 years. So those neural synapses have all withered away. And going back and playing the piano, those synapses have fired back up and they become sort of super highways. So I think it's a bit of both, because the mindset, but I do think you have to do things. It's that act of being and doing, which is what will lay down the new neural nets. And visualization is part of that. They did those studies where people were visualizing weight training, and the bicep muscle still grew, but it will grow faster and bigger if you actually go and weight train. And you probably heard Dr. Joe talk about it, and I think it's in one of his books, where they had people that were in their 70s and 80s, and they put them back into a time and played the music and got them doing all this fun stuff as if they were younger. And when they checked all the genetics, that actually anti-aged. And so, I think it's a bit of both. I don't think that we can sit in an isolated room and meditate and go, I'm going to be greater and bigger than myself and those sort of things. I think that helps. But I think it's until we go out and we have the vulnerability to be seen and be witnessed in that new part, and the universe. I'm a big believer that we are all the universe experiencing itself in all our different little forms. That's how the universe does it, right? It's like, well, I want to know what it's like to have MS and a spinal cord injury and be a bit woo-woo and do all this fun stuff. And so I'm Fiona experiencing, this is how the universe experiences that part. And I think that when we go out in the world and we become that new part, and the universe in someone, our friends, like you witnessing me back, and we be witnessed, there's something about that in the neural nets, and that the universe is now properly experiencing itself, where that doesn't happen when we sit alone in a room and meditate it to the same degree. So I think it's also about being witnessed in our new state.
Yeah. Oh, you just made me think of mirror neurons in the brain as well, and just how important it is, who you surround yourself with, especially if we're, say, trying to get out of old familiar circumstances, old patterns, and we're still hanging out with the same people, we're still practicing the same daily ritual routine, cementing and making those ropier dense pathways even stronger, as opposed to getting around other people. Or even, if we think about it in terms of astrology and things too, when you have like certain transits, or you're sort of like open to people coming into, new destinies, or people that are supposed to like come in and change your life, if we're just sitting in the room alone and we're meditating and we're like, where is this person? Where is this amazing upgrade? We actually have to get out there into the universe. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. And this is why it's so important to surround yourself with, teachers or people that really will help you grow and expand. And I think you're such a gorgeous example of someone who's done that, who, and it is also having people that you're attracting in that are getting those mirror neuron activations in the brain from the work that you're sharing and doing too.
Yeah, and ditto, right back at you. And it's hard, isn't it? Because you grow up and you change, and I've talked about this a lot as part of the biohacking stuff, is that if you are trying to change and become greater than who you are, I think it's Gary Vee and so many people say you become like the top 5 people that you hang around with, right?
So
so
yeah.
You have to do an audit of, it's just the same as what you eat and what you think and the quality of your water. You have to do an audit of the 5 people you hang around with the most. And so if those people aren't encouraging you to be a better version of yourself, or at least on board with where you're going, or they don't support that new energy, you do have to have a good look at that stuff. And it's really hard. But I always say, like, if you say your thing is to become a millionaire and you're hanging around people that live paycheck to paycheck, is that going to work for you? Or if let's say you want to give up drinking, but all your friends just know you as going out on the weekend and drinking all the time, those things, and that they're often where we find as humans the things the hardest to change.
Yeah, so true. And I think a lot of it's also programmed in, to do with self-belief or self-worth or feeling unlovable. Our old little kinesiology charts that we used in Touch for Health and things, all that little ladder of interconnected emotions. So I think, if we're looking to a lot of common stuck things, some of those emotions I just mentioned, the very opposite on the other side is more kind of like feeling safe. And I think that's where, self-regulation and tapping and meditation and somatic work comes in to stabilize yourself first within yourself. It also leads to feeling open and receptive, acceptable within yourself and in tune. And I think if we can kind of create that first, even before we branch out and go, you know what, I am going to go to that like business networking thing, or I am going to fly over the other side of the world and go to Dr. Joe's event, or, come into like a longevity biohacking event that you're doing. I think if we're kind of right and we're like an island of certainty and security within self first, it does make that little bridge to get to the next phase so much easier. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people are holding on to these people, like that's keeping them floating, or that's sort of like the people as their island. But if you can become that island of certainty and security, it's just one thing that I found really helped me, is to have that internal kind of like dialogue, how you were saying before, or that balance within self. So guys, you need to get yourself the tools. So whether this is doing the breath work, whether this is the hypnotic subliminals that I've created, or other things, and type in the chat, like what works for you, what brings you guys back to balance. Please, if you have any questions as well, we've got about 15 minutes with the gorgeous Fiona. So please pop them in all caps in the chat. What are your tips and tools that help you come back to your center point and feel that certainty with self?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think meditation is my go-to. That just recentering and those sort of things. And I think I've worked out the things that bring me joy. And so those things, I make sure I spend time in doing those sort of things and just being really present. Like I took all social media off my phone and just trying to be present, whether it's like with Apollo, his dogs and pets are really good at just looking at you and sitting and just really being. So I think, and then I know the things that are in alignment with me or that make me, that are part of my higher good. So if I'm fallen off or, I'm feeling like a bit lost, I would just do more of that sort of stuff. I am naturally quite introverted, so I need quite a bit of time to self just to decompress and just to connect with my own energy, probably like you, because you do so much. This energy goes that way during the day that I need enough time to, make sure I draw energy back into myself and connect with myself. So, and I've gotten better. I think the other thing that I had to learn through the burning of my life process was boundaries. I was just so crap at that. I was just so bad at that, and I've gotten good at that. So I think the other thing too is, and I think the MS and spinal cord stuff for me was my body just like, I unfortunately you have to learn this the hard way. So, like last night I wanted to go and do a book club, and then I was meant to go and do a few other bits and pieces, and it was pouring with rain, and I don't love going out in the rain because I can't run to get out of the wet. And so I'm like, okay, do I want to go and do this? I'm like, I know I need to put myself out there and do more, but I'm like, no, like that's a boundary that I have, that I won't put myself in situations where I might fall over and, or hurt myself. And then there are other things where, like I have to go to the US and I'm going to Mongolia and things like that feel like a little scary, but I'm also like, no, like if I really tune into myself and my breath and like how does that feel in my body, and the universe is trying to make it as easy as possible, then I'm like, no, that'll be okay. So I guess it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? It's that self boundaries and that know thyself, that beautiful thing in the Matrix. I think the more you know yourself, the less likely you are to put yourself in situations that you compromise yourself. But if you also know yourself, and you mentioned this before, having yourself as your own anchor, and you don't have to be externally referenced, so you don't look outside of yourself for feedback about who you are, you're then able to go and put yourself into situations where you are changing and creating new neural nets, even if they feel a bit tricky. So it's that you have to be able to do both, right? It's like, this is a boundary, and no, I need to go do this because this feels a bit scary, but this is me creating a new version of myself. So yeah, you have to know both. But I think, but you have to know yourself to be able to do that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, having other people around that work on mindset stuff too, it's always going to be that little reminder, oh, they're doing that, or they're going to yoga or meditation. And it's, that also helps too. So the gorgeous Lorianne has, and I just want to say, I would love to have you back on too, to talk more about, I've popped your kidney health website up and things, but just so much at the moment. I think people are really wanting to have that support around change. So the gorgeous Lorianne has this question: what is the best way to get my mind to attain a restful sleep?
That sounds, Lorianne, like you have a monkey mind that is not on board with the restful sleep business. That's a really great question, because we know as sleep is one of my key biohacking things of what we need to do. So there's a few different things. We can go all the way from the spiritual and down into the physical. From a physical point of view, you can use things like L-theanine or magnesium threonate. They're really good. Lemon balm, chamomile tea before bed, making sure that you're not doing any blue screens or doing anything stimulating before bed. I don't really watch TV. I'm often watching YouTubes or Acid for Squares or something like that. And then, the TV goes off at about 8. I go into bed at 9. So I listen to generally 8D music or something like that for an hour, and I become very present with my dog. My phone goes off at 8 o'clock. It gets put away, so I'm not being distracted or having anything that my mind will then start ruminating. If you've got a really busy monkey mind, that might be a really nice time to journal, to just get stuff out of your head and onto paper. And then Solreta's got these beautiful meditations and subliminal sort of stuff that she's done, listening to something like that, maybe doing some gentle breath practice, obviously not the stimulating sort of stuff, making sure your room is cool and as dark as possible, using the Oslo earbuds. I set the sleep mask on, so the room's super dark, and I put earplugs in, so I've got a Doberman that likes to snore. All of those things, so sleep doesn't get disturbed. But if you've got a really busy monkey mind, then the L-theanine or magnesium threonate, the lemon balm, but journaling and then listening to something like What Soul's created. So you've got a different message going in before you're going to bed rather than that. So yeah, that'd be my tips. That's what I do.
Yeah, really great tips. And I can see Lorianne's saying as well, the frequency is obscene, and even my spouse, deeper sleeper, is struggling to get rest. So even maybe like an EMF silver net protector could be good, just to keep you guys in that little dome of EMF protected frequencies. But yeah, so many great tips and tools. And I haven't tried out the sleep mask yet, but they look really great for flying too.
Yeah, I've got a Dr. Joe one with the eye set in there, and you can get those really full blackout ones. I've also got a Leela quantum block in the bedroom, the big one that will knock out all the EMF and stuff like that. So I have got a Leela Q super block, the big mama.
Oh
yeah, they've done some. You'd love them, so I'll go and have a look there. Yes, the Leela Q quantum block, and I've got, like I say, I've got the huge ass one in my bedroom, and it knocks out, I think maybe it's 100 meters, it will knock out 5G and things like that. It's so weird that in my bedroom, like the Wi-Fi, I don't live in a big house, the Wi-Fi like will drop right as you get into there. So I've tested, I've got a Wi-Fi reader. I'm like, yeah, it definitely does reduce EMF. So that might be worth a try.
Gosh. Yeah, that sounds amazing. So definitely have a look into that, Lorianne. And I can see Ken saying, I miss my dopamine. He's got some beautiful fur babies as well. And Larry saying, stay peaceful inside your circle. I think that's really good advice. And hello, Steph. So let me just pop up your website. Oh, and can you please remind me the date? I think you were saying it was November. You've got the longevity conference.
Oh, no, 30th of May. It's coming up soon. So we've got the Dave Asprey. Yes, we've got the big Dave Asprey Longevity Biohacking Conference in Austin, Texas. And then there's another one that's running parallel next to it on days in between, called the Immortality Longevity Conference. So I'm in Austin, Texas, speaking at that on the 30th of May. So I have to get my flight sorted. So soon.
Really, really soon. I can't wait to just see the photos and see some of the posts and things that you have over there. That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, there's a cool group of people talking, so it'll be great.
Yeah, that'll be amazing. Can you tell us a bit, and I'd love to have you back on to discuss a lot of your work and research that you're doing with MS and with kidney health. Can you tell us a bit about your website as well?
Sure. So this is kidneycoach.com. So my nana got diagnosed with stage 4 chronic kidney disease eons ago, and she just handed me her blood tests, and she was going in for a hip replacement. And I said, has your doctor told you that you're in stage 4 kidney failure? She's like, no. So when she went back, and I said, go back and speak to your doctor. And he's like, oh, yeah, we don't tell anybody that, because there's nothing we can do. It's dialysis or a kidney transplant. And that is a story I hear over and over and over again. And so my business partner created a program, and then during COVID, we were recommending all these supplements that people had to get. And we're like, well, why don't we just make them ourselves so people don't have to buy them all separately? So that birthed Kaigenesis and Kidney Coach. So, and then, the YouTube channel came from there, and I've got a beautiful soul tribe of people with kidney disease where I do monthly live calls with them. So, we've just got amazing products that we put together so people don't have to buy 50 million different things. And kidneys in Chinese medicine are the organs of longevity. So they're amazing for that. And they're the most probably neglected organ. But in kinesiology, interestingly, the kidney meridians and kidney ones are the things that we do all the time because of fear and the adrenal glands. Yet in Western medicine, in Chinese medicine, they are one of the most important organ systems because that's where your qi gets generated from. It's where longevity comes from. It's what makes the hair on our head stay dark before going grey. And then yet in Western medicine, they are so ignored, and there's nothing to do apart from dialysis and a transplant, and which is nobody wants to be stuck on a dialysis machine 5 days a week, and nobody really wants a kidney transplant. Yet they're organs that if you look after them, we can do so many amazing things. So I'm very passionate about kidneys and very lucky to write that. We've got the Springer Nature medical textbook coming out in June. Took a bit longer than we thought, but I've been told that's the release date. That will go now to nephrologists and to anyone studying medicine as a medical text, where we start to show people that there is things that we can do for the kidneys that's far more important than just, dialysis and transplant. So Western medicine doesn't have a lot for the kidneys, whereas ancient Chinese medicine actually has a lot. Acupuncture has a lot. Kinesiology has a heap. And so, we've got a lot there too. So, that's my passion, is making sure we look after those beautiful little organs.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I definitely need to have a look at your chart, because it sounds like whatever sort of comes your way as an obstacle, it's like you help others, with what happened with your grandma. And it's interesting, the 5 of Cups in the Thoth Tarot deck, it has kidneys at the top of it. And then you see sort of like this murky kind of, almost like a lymphatic-y, like phlegmatic type energy to the card. And you just see that like the little renal artery and vein, it's just not looking the healthiest in that 5 of Cups, which is often about like grief and loss. And, we talk about Chinese medicine, kidneys being related to fear. And it's interesting. It's like this 5 of Cups is this kind of grief, or like where we're fixated on things. A 3 of Cups, and there's always the 2 of Cups at the background, which is like love, connection, which is the opposite to fear. But yeah, go check out Fiona's kidney coach. I've just popped it in the chat as well. You can see it up on there. Go and have a follow. And if you're interested in health, you definitely don't want to miss out on this. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you've got coming up that people should be aware of, or that they might like to join?
I don't think so. So we've got that big conference. I'm always running trainings and things, but they're more for medical practitioners and things like that. So lots of cool stuff going in that way. I think that's all the major stuff going on there. And just, like I say, we're podcasting all the time. So if you're interested in kidneys and the biohacking and peptides and things like that, we have I'm very lucky and blessed to be connected to some very smart individuals, including my amazing friend, Dr. Alex Grimberg, who is an amazing, smart Russian triple board certified doctor. So we often podcast together, and he's got some great stuff on just longevity and peptides and how to use that. So you can always head to the YouTube channel and listen to that if you're into that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. And I can't wait to catch up with you in person too.
Yeah, I'm going to send you my chart. I forgot how good you are at this stuff. So
I'm not professional, but just sometimes there's like little patterns and things that you can see when it comes to it. I think
you're underselling yourself. I know you are.
I just, I'm a bit of a geek for things like that. Thank you also to our gorgeous soul tribe for joining us. And I see a few people in the chat saying part 2, please. So that will definitely be so much fun to dive into some more topics and biohacking. And maybe we get like your list of maybe like the top 10 biohacking things as well. I think there's so many more fun things. So thank you again, gorgeous. And everything is in the description box below. So if you want to go check out Fiona's work, please go and do so.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Sol. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.